ChessDiagnostic.
Hello everybody, welcome to ChessDiagnostic. So this video is my 3 wins from the World Open, and this first one I was black, and basically my opponent just went crazy in the game with an unsound attack. And I noticed that with some of the games I was watching was that you'd have players that had just become expert. This player was, I think, a little over 2,000, or he had a 2,000 floor, but it looked like if they're on the cusp of expert to Class A, in Class A you can win a lot of games just being very aggressive, but it seems that even in under 2,200, if you make an attack that's not totally sound, then the opponent, especially if they have a long time control, they're going to figure it out and you'll have no problems. So here that's what happened. E4, C5, knight to C3, knight to C6. Now with the F4 line, this variation of the Sicilian I'm not totally comfortable with, because a lot of times white just gets a crazy kingside attack and black just has to hold on, which is what happened here. But I've had a lot of experience lately, at least in some blitz games and just analyzing some games in this line, and I didn't really know this line or what to do after just some normal moves. But I just played standard moves, but I guess e6 isn't the strongest. Just you could fiend kittle the bishop and then bring the knight to f6 is okay. But I just wanted to have a totally stable position, and so I played somewhat passively. But even here, it's saying that black has a minus 0.5 advantage, so the computer is giving some slight advantage to black. And I felt my position was just fine. The opponent seemed to think that e6 was inaccurate, but he ended up losing, so maybe it's not the most accurate evaluation. But he tries to start this attack with just these 3 pieces here, and he neglects his own development. Now, a normal move like bringing the bishop in, bringing the queen here is a good idea, g4, but you can see that even at this level, a lot of players are neglecting just basic activity, basic understanding of activity. And he ended up paying for that after he starts an unsound attack. So I start playing in the center, because of course when your opponent's trying to attack on the wing, you want to attack in the center. And he starts too soon with f5. It's not really the right time. In addition, there's also ideas like b5 trapping this bishop, which is eventually what happens. And so his idea with f5 is, of course, just to get rapid development of his bishop, but I maintain the tension and don't take. And now the problem is, here, if he takes with the knight, you could see that actually I have something like knight from d to f5 forking here, so he can't take with that knight. So he has to take either with the queen, which he can't because he'd lose the bishop. He has to take with the pawn. And now, after I trade down some pieces, his attack is pretty much dead. He doesn't have that knight to swoop in to g5. And this rook is not really doing anything, as well as the f-pawn will be adequately defended after I bring the bishop in. So now I take the chance to trap this bishop. There's really nothing he can do because either the bishop moves and I play c4. So he trades, but as you can see, it's a rook and a queen versus a knight, a rook, and a queen. So I just knew that even if there was some complication that I missed, that I would have enough pieces to defend. So at this point I was playing pretty quickly. And now I felt like my position was very good and I was winning. He could have played a check here, but it doesn't really lead anywhere. I'm well enough defended. So he's desperately trying to push pawns and just open some lines, but after knight to g8, either he trades queens or moves back. Now I guess it was stronger to play something like knight to c6 and get this knight either here or here, but of course I was playing somewhat passively, but I felt that I could get, even though this knight was a move back. I felt that I would have enough activity to activate my queen, and of course I'm winning material. But of course, these are the kind of things that you should analyze even if you want a game. Notice that it's very simple just to see that knight to c6 is better because it's more active instead of knight to g8. And it's these little things that really add up. That's what I've been doing with my losses, of course, but I do it with every game I play. So he moved his queen back, and then I brought my queen up. Of course, now he's trying to hang on to that g4 pawn. I take my time to win this material. And as you can see, I'm well defended. This rook's pinned to the queen, unless he wants to trade. And after, okay, so I was threatening to actually win this rook. For example, if he moved here, I could play g5. And then this rook's trapped. I'll win an exchange at least. So he makes a mistake. He should have played queen to d3, keeping this knight protected. But after he moves queen to g2, I start undermining that knight, and I eventually get a passed pawn with this. All right, so I guess bishop to c4 is not the most accurate. I should have just played bishop takes a2 and immediately winning. But I wanted to just trade and then put a rook behind the pawn and then queen it. So here he just goes totally crazy, and I guess he hallucinated that either I would have to take this pawn, but actually the king is fine because the queen's covering this square. And after you can see that there's really no good option. If he takes with the pawn, then I can just win this knight, and he takes with the rook, but it's over after I take here, because even if he takes, I'll take with check, and I'm up way too much material. So he resigned at this point. So I felt good about this game. It was, I think, the first win that I had, so it gave me some confidence that I could beat some of these players in this section. All right, moving on to the second game. All right, so in this game, I was black, and it was another Sicilian. This was a 35-minute game, and it starts with e4, c5, knight to f3. Okay, so one of my subscribers asked for a deeper explanation of what's going on when you're thinking of strategy. Well, the truth is, it's actually quite simple. It's a combination of knowing an opening or the line and the general principles, which is activity, center, and when somebody's learning these principles, it sounds overly simple, but the application of it can be very complicated. Because sometimes your mind is focused on something else when it really needs to be focused on the main thing, and that's the whole point of these principles. So we'll try to figure out what's going on here from that understanding. So e6, of course, this is a line. I'm trying to go for my normal con, where I play e6, a6, and it's just very classical. I don't really like playing lots of theory or very complicated things because I don't think it's necessary. And even Magnus Carlsen, he's playing just very simple openings and winning because the main or the most important skill in chess is really the middle game. If you look at Magnus Carlsen or Capablanca, the real genius of what they do is they outplay everybody in the middle game, and they end up with a one ending already. The opponent a lot of times just doesn't know it yet, or they don't understand what's going on. So really the most valuable thing you could have is middle game skills, which is a combination of knowing what plans to do, overall strategy, as well as complicated tactics. All right, so here we are at just the standard theory: knight to knight to c3, queen to c7. So the opponent has his own idea. It's not really standard, but according to the computer, it's actually not a bad idea. Bring the queen to f3, I develop the knight, bring the bishop to e3, and now he plans to castle queenside, which at first I thought was crazy, but it actually makes sense, although it's dangerous. So he brings the knight back, and the computer's actually evaluating white has a plus 0.5 advantage. And not that it really matters, or I mean, it's too early in the game. He's not winning or anything, but it's just this. I've never seen these ideas before for white, where in the con, normally he'll bring his bishops in, castle kingside, and we'll just play in the center. But we get quite an interesting middle game here. All right, so it's quite dynamic at this point. Of course, I can start an attack with b5, planning to bring my bishop to b7, and castling, and then bringing my rooks over. So this general idea is what you would call your plan or your strategy, and it basically guides what you're going to do over the next couple of moves. So it's not that complicated. It's just knowing what you want to do. For example, white has castled queenside, and so I know what I've learned over the years is that if you don't follow the basic, the three basic things in the opening, where you develop your minor pieces, you castle, and then you connect your rooks. If you don't do that, you're going to lose, especially when playing against a strong player. And even strong players a lot of times don't follow this. They'll see, like the last game I just showed you, they'll see the opportunity for a quick attack, thinking they can win right away. It's beaten down, and they're left with a shitty position. So the only solution is to always adhere 100% to the principles, and that's the main goal, is to always adhere to these ideas. And it's hard. It's not easy because humans like to think that they're rational and logical, but we're actually emotional. When you're playing a game, you get excited, you have some adrenaline, and you think you see something when it's not there. All right, so he starts putting pressure on my king side, threatening to ruin this pawn structure for my king, and then my king would really have no safe place. So actually I'm forced to come back. And so this is an example of when the tactics outweigh the strategy. So I know I'm saying that when you understand activity, you always want to move your pieces forward and try to attack, but you also need to keep in mind that your opponent is trying to do the same. And so he's threatening to win a pawn here, very simply. He takes, and then my king side can be screwed. So the only options really are, of course, I can play dynamically and try to attack his queen. Of course, that's probably not the best move, but either I move that or I try to move it back and reroute it. But of course, that's just a waste of time. So I've seen that happen too, where a player will see a threat and then he'll try to solve it in some complicated way. Really, the simplest is move the bishop back, and now actually there's a benefit where I can push this pawn. All right, so here we're just playing the center, develop a piece. B4 is what the computer is recommending, and objectively, it's probably the best, just playing attacking chess. But the simple and logical bishop to b7, no problem at all. Pretty much the same evaluation. All right, so at this point, the computer is evaluating minus 1.3, and as soon as he moves back, it jumps up to 2, to minus 2, almost a winning advantage for me. Now, why is that? Well, because he just made a move back, decreasing his own activity, removing a piece from the center, and now it also wastes time. Now I can activate or attack with b4, and he decides to just trade, but of course that makes my bishop more active, and now his knight is out of play. Of course, he has the idea here, but I just start having some threats with rook to c8, and now I'm only one move away from completing the opening task. White's a little behind, although he's not too bad, but the main problem is this knight over here. It's not doing anything, and if I play d6, which is actually what the computer recommended, just playing d6. Now this knight really has no chance of entering the game at all. Of course, he can try here, but these yeah, I mean, he can probably get it in, but these kinds of moves are very hard for humans to find, let alone having some ideas like this, pinning the queen to the king. So it's just very scary if you're playing very accurately, and you have to find these very accurate moves to keep your pieces active. It's a lot simpler just to not get yourself in these kind of piece positions, but of course easier said than done. So I just play what's logical to me, activating all my pieces. You can see my bishop's active. This knight and this bishop are ready to spring into action, and I'm one move away from castling. All right, so he's trying to get his king out of dodge, and I play knight to d4. d6, of course, was still the recommended move, but I like to play aggressively. And now, of course, if he takes, it looks like he can win a piece, but actually not, because I get mate. And it's all because of these two inactive pieces. The bishop's blocking the rook's not doing anything. All right, so he plays queen to d3. And I could have just castled here, still just keep this knight in the center, but I take, and then he takes with the a-pawn, I castle. Now he still can't take here because I'll just take the c2 pawn. And now he still has some trouble developing, and I have the two bishops. So at this point, I evaluated that I have the two bishops, his knight is completely out of play, and I have some good chances for an attack. So strategically, what I'm going to do is just try to keep increasing my activity and make simple threats. The idea of this cannot be understated. So a lot of times, I know when I was a 1500 player or a 1700 player, I thought some of the moves were just amazing that were going on, and there was some huge grand strategy, but it doesn't really work like that. Maybe at the grandmaster level, but even then I would think not, because what happens is you make a plan and then your opponent reacts and you adjust to it. You make simple threats and you just keep active. And it sounds overly simplified, but it's really not, because you can find very accurate moves just with these ideas, and it's applicable in all positions. So this game analysis hopefully is not too long. I'm just trying to be in depth here. So based on that idea, I just played queen to e5. Now there's two threats. So I'm threatening, well, he has f4, but of course I'm threatening the e4 pawn, so he has to defend it. So he's pretty much one move behind, and I have the initiative. Now the initiative is a huge advantage because it allows you to take control of the game, make attacking moves, and your opponent's forced to find accurate moves to prevent you from winning. So I have two ideas here. There's both the e4 pawn and then bishop to c4, trading this knight and checkmating on b2. So my opponent sees all these threats, and what he wants to do is to chase the queen back, defending the e4 pawn, and now he's ready to play f4. I play g4. Now this isn't the most accurate. He could have just still played f4, and then my king would have been a little open, but it's hard to play these positions, and we were in time trouble, honestly. So I'm just making logical moves, and of course g4 is not a bad idea. It's logical, it's not losing. So he's following the main idea of playing f4 and keeping that pawn, and now I lock that out with g4. Or sorry, if I said g4, I meant g5. So g4 now, and if he plays, I can just take en passant, and now he blunders in time trouble. So he could have taken here, but of course this e4 pawn's still under threat, and I can still take it. So if he takes with the queen, I have a intermediate move, taking here. And now he's starting to get into some trouble, but he found a good move with knight to c5, activating that knight. I threaten it and pin it, but then he has this move covering or blocking the queen from here as well as attacking this pawn. So I protect my pawn, and now he makes a mistake taking the material, thinking that it's okay to get it back, but all my pieces suddenly spring into action with rook from d to f8. So it's saying minus 3.6 at this point, and that's because I have ideas like a4, which my opponent missed, because after I threatened his queen, he could have just moved here. Of course, I would have threatened him as well, and then pushed a4 anyway, but he moves his queen all the way back, completely inactive. You can see it's only controlling this diagonal, and this is where your general understanding comes into play. So I knew that that was a blunder, and so I just started pushing pawns to break open the position, and he blundered again by just taking the pawn and then allowing b3. Now b3 is absolutely crushing because I'm going to win a ton of material. And at this point it's all tactics. There's really no strategy. It's just calculating what to check, what to attack. So you're vacillating between attacking moves. Once you have an advantage, of course, you just start calculating and figure out which piece to take, where to check, and it becomes actually a lot simpler. When you're attacking, it's simple, but when you're defending, it can be complicated. As you can see, he's just making multiple blunders at this point because he's totally lost, but it's a very hard position to defend because I have tons of threats. He has a knight that's largely inactive, and my bishop's just cutting in against his king. And I just start pushing this pawn forward, and now he blunders again. I take, he blunders again, allowing this check. Now notice, even if the rook took here, I could still just check, and then after I take all this material, it's just totally winning. So any moves are good for me pretty much, but especially this helps after I take, and then he actually just played on till mate, and he was just mated very quickly. I think we each had like 8 seconds left, so there's a lot of blunders in this game because it was a 35-minute game, but this opponent was rated 2075, and he had won, I think, some of his games, 2 games or so. So he wasn't necessarily playing too badly against in terms of the other opposition, but here, just the pressure from my attack led to blunders. And you don't really need to play a picture-perfect game to win. You just need to play better than the other guy. And being active, 1, being active, 2, making simple threats, and just keeping your opponent under pressure will lead to a lot of wins. Alright, so I hope this was clear. This video is getting a little long, but hopefully you'll stick around for the third game, the last one here. Thanks. Alright, so here's the third game, and I was white. So the 2 games I won were Sicilians, and the 1 game with white that I won was a Roy Lopez. And I really need to learn from that because those are the 2 openings that I have the most experience in, and I'm just very comfortable. And I think going forward, that'll have a huge impact on how well I do, whether I'm comfortable with the resulting middle game and endgame positions. So here I play e4 and e5. I've really been thinking to play d4 more. I play it a lot in blitz games and stuff, but I don't play it too often over the board. But I really think I can really see the benefit of switching to d4 against stronger players, just because the openings from d4 can be, I don't know how to describe it, they don't seem as tactical from the opening. You can get away with just developing, whereas with e4 there's a lot of aggressive options for black. So when I get the Ruy Lopez, I feel very comfortable playing these positions because the strategy is very clear, and it's just basically playing in the center. And in the closed variation, which we kind of get a mishmash of that here, Now black is playing a little inaccurately, just kind of developing pieces, but it's otherwise equal. So black wants to win that bishop, of course. I just resume my development, and I should have taken with the queen here, but I decided to play a little more weirdly, and I just take with the pawn. Of course, it's a normal decision because you can always play b4 and put pressure because you have that semi-open file with the rook on the a file, but here actually it presents some problems. Alright, so a main maneuver in the Ruy Lopez's white is to bring the knight from d2 to f1 and either to e3 or g3. That's a very important maneuver to know. And in this case, actually there's huge benefits because it's a closed position. Now black has the two bishops, but either he moves his bishop back to c8 and trades on f5, but at this point he just wants to keep that bishop protecting the king side. A little slow, but otherwise sound. So I'm just developing all my pieces and planning on starting a kingside attack. Another move back, which of course isn't the best, but you know, in these types of positions there's a lot of maneuvering and just trying to find the best piece placement. The strategy here is white is going to start a kingside attack and try to just keep everything closed off in the center and in the queen side, and black's going to try to break open the queen side. So chasing my pieces back. Now here I played a little inaccurately. I should have played bishop to d2, and that actually leaves open ideas of rook to e3, bringing my queen in and giving more strength to my attack. Alright, so now black has started with this strategy of trying to break open the center and the queen side, and I play an attacking move that was a little inaccurate because black could actually take this pawn. He could actually play c, but I could have went for a draw here with perpetual. So my opponent didn't want to allow that, even though he actually lost. But I would do the same. If there's a perpetual, you don't know if the opponent's just going to make a draw if you want to win, or if it's equal, you don't actually want to draw right away. You should always play and keep your opponent's options as limited as possible, is what I'll say there. Alright, so I decided to take with the d pawn and then play b4. And my opponent goes a little astray here. He makes a tactical mistake by trying to break open the queen side further, because now he actually can't take this b pawn with the queen, because I have knight takes g7, and of course if the bishop takes, then I'm just completely winning at this point. So he has to play rook to e7, but then I get just a blown open king side, and I would definitely win this position. Alright, so we don't get that line. He saw that immediately after he took that he couldn't take out the queen, so he has to try to get rid of this knight here, and I just take. And now actually it's totally winning after the queen takes. He should have taken with the d pawn, which is a little counterintuitive because now he's kind of doomed this bishop in here, but it actually gives him an open file, and it's not so bad. He could bring the rook in and try to get this pawn back, although even here it's still a pretty bad position for black. And now notice these are the kind of lessons you should be learning from your games. So it's two bishops versus two knights. Now, of course, the bishops are stronger than the knights. That's just because they control more squares. But this is where your positional understanding comes in. The reason that bishops are stronger is because they have more squares in an open position. So if all your pawns, or if all of your opponent's pawns, are on the wrong color, then your bishops are actually terrible. And if we actually count the squares that white controls with his bishops, a normal bishop will control 14 squares at the most. a rook will control 15. So a bishop here only controls 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the bishop here only controls 2. So out of 2 bishops, we have only 7 squares controlled, whereas with my knights, this one knight's controlling 8 squares. So this is where your positional valuation comes in. Now, a weaker player might say, okay, I have the 2 bishops, I'm doing good. Actually not, because after the tactical complications here, my knights can jump in anywhere. The knight on f5 is very strong, and actually I have queen to... Well, actually, he took with the queen, but even here, it's a losing position. So he took with the queen, which allows queen to h5 hitting here, as well as threatening some checks. Now, he makes a tactical error, allowing a fork here. And actually, after a couple more moves and a queen trade, he just resigned because this ending is completely hopeless. There's really nothing black can do. And I love playing endings like this. So this is a good example of what a lot of chess geniuses are doing. Not that this is an example of chess genius, it's not what I'm saying, but it's the idea of it, of playing better in the middle game and having a better position, even if you're not up material, and then transposing to a winning endgame. Of course, it would be recommended to keep on playing. I just would keep playing and not resign, because you never know if there's a blunder or some problem. But if you play good enough in the middle game, you'll have a winning position. So at this point, all I have to do, if we wanted to play some more moves in this end game to see what could happen, pretty much white would just tie up all of black's pieces, slowly activating winning material, and then he could even trade down and transpose further into a winning king and pawn ending. Now there's no way that black will stop these 3 pawns. White will most likely win all of these black pawns, and there's just no hope. So that strategy of playing superior in the middle game, winning some material or gaining a better position, and then transposing to a winning endgame is a very powerful tactic, because once you transpose to a winning endgame, there's very little risk that you'll lose, because it's much harder to drum up counterplay in a lost ending, simply for the fact that there's less material. Alright, so I hope these games taught you something or were enjoyable. Of course, it's more enjoyable to go over some wins, but I also enjoy going over losses as much, because I can really get to the heart of what happened, what the hell happened there. But even in the winning games, I still made some inaccuracies and blunders as well. Alright, so I'm going to get back to analyzing master games on this channel. I made some ending videos that I need to post, and I'm thinking about making a new course to how to get to 1500. I think that would be kind of interesting to look back and see how I played when I was 1500 and how I got just to that level. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for future videos. See you in the future.